Internet. It's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We are here talking about Lovecraft Country, Season 1, Episode 3, Holy Ghost. We open on Letty, sadly, sitting through George's funeral. We close on Christina, surviving Atticus's murder attempt. That's our episode. Basically, this is a Letty episode.
Yes.
And it's about a haunted house.
Yes.
As she even says later in the episode, she's talking to Atticus, and she goes, my house is haunted. and I like the fact that he's like, all right, walk me through it. The show is good about that. You know, that reminds me of earlier, Letty and George think that Atticus is maybe delusional for seeing the monsters when they didn't remember seeing it. They quickly get over that, right? Within the same episode, they go, given their memories, and they know. So it's to the show's credit that it doesn't waste time on the I don't believe you. I'm gonna. It does remind me of yes and the improv mantra.
Oh sure,
you're supposed to say yes and add something. You don't negate your partner's idea and then have to start over again. So
no.
So good. The plot moved. We didn't have a 5-minute bit of convince me.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway. So yay for that. Yes. What are your thoughts on this episode, Paul?
I liked it since we last talked, and actually only just an hour ago. I wanted to learn more about the original source, the book in which it is based. This one apparently is based on the dreams of the witch house, which the interesting thing that that is about that book is it's divided into stories. The way that these episodes are divided.
Which is also the way that Lovecraft, most of his stories are short stories. It'll be an anthology of short stories.
Okay.
With some exceptions, but for the most part, so this is playing into a Lovecraft style anthology.
Presumably, though, more effort being put in this book of keeping the same characters throughout.
Yep.
Yeah, so that makes it certainly interesting. The thing that I was telling you about before, how stories sort of begin and end, and you feel like, are we going to lose all elements of that story? And even though the characters are continuing,
like when the house collapsed at the end of last episode, we're like, wait, what? Okay, yeah.
And of course, we had another house collapsing, or not collapsing, but a house changing in this episode, and then everything appeared to be all right, which is an interesting story choice. So it'd be interesting if any of those aspects that we discovered in here return. It was interesting seeing that in the original work, she makes a deal with the ghost.
Yeah, and neither one of us is leaving. Yeah.
And in this version, they took a more typical, I think, approach, like heightening on the aspect of how medical industry has treated black people. And having those ancestors, sort of come together and heal themselves and expel the white man.
Hiram Epstein.
Yes, expel the one who had caused all the problems. So rather than having this character exist, which if that character was a white man, it would have been interesting in the book.
Right. Yeah. Agreed.
But another thing, I can't stop myself now.
Sure.
Apparently, our villainess,
Christina,
does not appear to be a part of the books either.
Right. It seems like there was a character named Caleb, who was related.
Yes.
I think she's taking the place of Caleb.
Yeah. I think you're right. Yes, it was the son. So clearly, one thing they focused on in this work is the fact that Christina did not have, she didn't have a strong position in the family. So they wanted that to be a theme.
In that last little 5-minute bit between Christina and Atticus, there's a lot of plot that comes out. In fact, I think he even says something like, I don't need a history lesson. She's like, wait, no, I'm telling you, exposition. But I think what we get out of that is, there was this guy, Winthrop, who I think was the builder of the house that Letty has now purchased.
Yes.
He was one of the founding members of the Sons of Adam, along with Titus Braithwaite. he at some point steals some of the pages from the Book of Names in an attempt to decipher them. As she puts it, there's like all kinds of great spell crafting power that you can just, if you can decipher correctly. He steals some pages, is kind of kicked out, becomes, Titus is like, boo, you ruined my book. And so then one of Winthrop's disciples is Hiram Epstein. And so he then inherits that house, and he's doing all these terrible medical experiments. I get the idea. I'm guessing there's like an immortality angle to what he was trying to do. For instance, one of the ghosts is obviously an adult male with a baby's head.
Yes.
So I think maybe he took like a baby's head and tried to sew it onto an older guy to maybe.
I don't know. One thing I thought was maybe he took a baby and had the body mature.
Oh, sure. Okay, sure.
It looked more like that to me. He didn't,
All right. But terrible experiments. But so Epstein is the disciple of Winthrop, and Christina drops during that thing that, oh, by the way, Titus, he then hid his pages in a vault. Surrounded by booby traps that no one can get into. Based on the trailer for next week, it looks like our heroes are going to be at that vault. So anyway, it seems like there is a maybe larger arc of finding these pages. And in one of the examples of what you can do if you know the spells is that Christina is invulnerable.
Right.
And apparently
so she claims anyway.
Her dad. Well, good point, but
she may be
there's
bluffing.
Some proof is that Atticus can't shoot her. Atticus.
Well, that doesn't. Is that a definition of invulnerability?
Well, in other words, I got the idea that he can't pull the trigger because she has some spell that prevents.
Because that's certainly different than Superman's invulnerability.
Sure. Oh, you're right. No, you're right. There's probably a loophole. Right? Well, what if I shot at an angle and didn't intend to hit you and it ricocheted? I don't know. But she's got some kind of form of practical invulnerability, which apparently her father had as well, but he dropped it in order to do this entering the Eden thing. And so, luckily for us, I guess, the good guys, he was turned to stone at the one time when he was not, vulnerable. There's also, interestingly, in that scene, it was kind of creepy, is, Atticus starts by closing the blinds to the storefront so he can kill her. She keeps it from killing her, and then she just she's opening the blinds while he's frozen in place, holding a pistol. There's a black man. She could easily have been like, oh no, there's someone trying to kill me if she'd wanted to.
Yes, she could have been. Yes, if she wanted to.
And it was that threat was actually really heightened in that moment, which I thought was...
and then, culminating in her saying, how stupid it would be to kill a white woman. Yep. So it's weird that we're, like, the things that are most interesting in terms of what's going to be perhaps carried for the rest of the series aren't the core of this episode, where
Correct.
It's this house that is haunted, and,
and
Letty...
cleansed.
And cleansed, yes. And Letty is also coming under a bit of a metamorphosis herself, carried from previous episodes. She was clearly shocked after being killed and brought back to life.
Yep.
We can assume, I don't know that she expresses it, but when she was at the funeral sitting while everyone else was, really being vigorous in their mourning. She does speak of it later, though, in terms of where she's felt emotionally after that, and she is trying to make a change, and she really is attempting to make amends with her sister Ruby, but there's still more for her to learn.
So the way that she attempts to make amends is, she thinks she's gotten an inheritance from her mom who recently passed away.
Yes.
As soon as that came out, actually, as soon as Ruby said, our mom didn't have any money, I was like, no, she didn't. So who gave her the money? I bet you it was Christina. And so I was like,
you can't prove it.
I wanted to come on to this show and be like, my prediction, we're going to find out that Christina, and I'm like, oh, they gave it away at the end.
Maybe we should just pause it the next time. Okay, before they tell us.
I only watched the first 40 minutes. But anyway, so she thinks, Mom gave me some money, and I was encouraged to purchase this house, and so I'm going to bring in my sister, and we're going to bond over this, fixer-upper that will turn into this creative space. It's going to be great. But then when she let slip that the mom, as she knows it, gave her money and didn't give any money to Ruby,
yes,
it becomes a real sore point in some ways there, and the sisters,
not just
by
Ruby.
the end,
not just Ruby, also their brother.
Right, good point, Marvin. But they weren't left out because there was nothing to leave out.
Yeah, no, the whole point of it is not just for some reason so that'll be an interesting question of this story where Ruby gets this offer, right? I mean, because for some reason
that's potentially another story that's coming up. It's from the book.
Right.
It's one of the short stories.
And you can see it coming a mile away.
Yeah, that's true. She keeps dropping the hints that I want to be a counter girl.
Yes.
At Marshall Fields.
Right.
So
but at least in this situation, Christina didn't want it to be overtly known. So she disguised it the gift of the money.
I think she figured that if Letty knew that Christina was giving her the money, she'd be like, no.
And it's a curious thing of why she would do it. She doesn't have the connection to. I mean, Atticus is friends with her,
right.
with Letty, but why give Letty the money? Why
I was thinking the same thing. Other than the fact that there's a handy contrivance in that. Your mom just recently passed away, so I can pretend there's an inheritance.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Interesting that it's not focused all on Atticus.
Right. So we do have the situation in this episode where Atticus and Letty have sex. It's her first time.
Yes.
Potentially, our villainess, Christina, perhaps knows the future, perhaps knows something, and perhaps I'm guessing that maybe Letty is going to become pregnant.
I'm hoping
with the next generation of Braithwaites. That's
interesting. Yeah, I forgot that you would theorize that. I was thinking that it was just a more one thing that happened in the house in the second episode is, if you don't want bad things to happen to your friends, you will do what we want. And he did it. So you could say that alone shows that,
right.
he can be manipulated, but maybe he'd be more motivated to be involved if, look how we've helped all your friends' lives. Maybe he'd be more, maybe that's, I don't know, who knows what she's up to. It's weird in that, at least in terms of what little I've gleaned from the book and what's happening currently is sort of like the typical story of the devil, where it's like, I'm going to give you some things that are nice, but are they nice? Maybe they're not nice.
Well, and I feel like the idea was that she intended for kind of what happened to happen, right? She, being Christina, wanted maybe Atticus to come in, or maybe she I don't know if she knew that Letty would do it or not, but like cleanse the house of the spirit and maybe find the pages. Maybe have some clue to where the pages are.
Right. Or if one of her objectives is, as you say, to creating another heir, maybe someone who Christina could have more control over.
Sure.
Maybe the point was, I feel they had established sort of that there were barriers keeping Atticus from Letty. And so this is a way to, get through that is by putting her in peril, and then Atticus would want to rescue her, and that would cause their union. Yeah. So maybe that may have been part of the plan. Who knows? It's interesting. I mean, since there's so many episodes yet to go, it seems more likely that we have still not seen yet the true explanation of what's going on there. I mean, one thing that occurs to me is that you generally have a situation where, like the sort of classic, I'm a villain and you're the hero, And so I'm going to try to stop you from doing stuff. And ultimately, it's like, okay, you know what? Now I'm going to kill you because I want to get what I want to get.
Right.
And better villains are the ones where it's like, I'm not going to kill you yet.
Right, like a Moriarty Holmes kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, or, let's see if I can get what I want to get and not kill you. But I certainly want to get what I want to get. And so she's being very crafty, and, you can say, like, she's doing nice stuff, so maybe she's not evil, but it's clear that, she's
Well, I think, for
malevolent.
instance, the reason she mentioned this whole thing about Titus's pages were in this vault that's booby-trapped, I think she maybe realizes that she can't get into that vault, but maybe Titus's heir can. So by mentioning it to Atticus, maybe she can push him along to actually get the pages, then she could take them from him. I think is the idea. She can use him to get the pages and then go, thank you. Now that they're out of the vault, I've got them. That's kind of
Maybe. We'll see. I feel like, though, that generally, though, once you see that okay, now I'm free to act malevolently and kill you. She's like
certainly
most
not,
villains
I'm
sort
nice.
of lose their interesting aspect, and it's just like, now I can be killed.
right.
Because I'm gonna try to kill you. Now I can be killed, and the end of the show is coming up pretty soon.
Right. Now I've been doing a Lovecraft quote each episode here. I figured I would do a quote inspired by the fact that this is a haunted house with a ghost.
Okay.
Maybe with some extra dimensional possibilities. So one of my this is another favorite quote of mine. It's from one of my favorite stories, the Dunwich Horror, which again I'm hoping there's some version of that in this series. But okay, so here you go. The quote is: "The old ones were, the old ones are, and the old ones shall be. Not in the spaces we know,
No?
but between them. They walk serene and primal, undimensioned, and to us, unseen." Oh yeah, here we go. The idea of not the spaces we know, but between them. And then racism. They're in the spaces between in a racism sandwich. But no, yeah, the idea of these spaces in between I think is really, really cool. But anyway, so there you go.
There you go.
Epstein in the spaces in between.
Ah.
By the way, don't play Ouija on a Ouija board in the windowless room below the basement of a house you've never been in before. I mean, come on. I'm just, you're just asking for trouble. You do that. The kids playing with the Ouija board.
No, I remember that part of the story. Yeah. I just don't know why the fact that there are no windows.
I don't know, just like extra creepy. Like you could do you could just be outdoors maybe, and you're like da 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 da. I get it. The point is to be creepy, but
I think so.
But then if somebody dies, is it fun anymore? Is it fun after we lost Jimmy?
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty fun until then.
That's right. All fun until someone puts an eye out.
Exactly. Okay,
Great
let's talk about
advice from Matt.
That's right. See, play Ouija outside. Hippolyta. We kind of almost at the beginning of the episode we see a fairly long scene involving her and Dee, her daughter, and Atticus. Atticus has been staying with her for apparently 3 weeks ish since they came back and announced that George had passed. During that time, they being Montrose, Letty, and Atticus, white lied to Hippolyta to say, look, he died. Yes, he was shot. Yes, he was shot by a sheriff. But
he didn't shoot the deputy.
Did not shoot the deputy, so that's good. And so she is convinced, rightly, that they're lying about something.
Yes.
But we also see this tension between her and Atticus. We see that she's trying to carry on with that the green book, the travel guide, and
yes.
He's like, "Oh yeah, I did that last night," and she's like, "Well, I tend to do those edits." He's like, "Oh, they look good," but like you can tell there's like they're butting heads a little bit, and Dee is like, "Oh, are you staying around?" And Atticus does this little meaningful look over to Hippolyta. It's like, well, I got things I got to do. I read that as Hippolyta was like, maybe if you could, move on. You've been here a few weeks. Please find your way to leave the place. And so You're
not actually saying they had a conversation to that effect. There's no reason why they wouldn't mention that. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
No, he was, when he went to his father's place, he was saying,
I got you.
That I've overstayed my welcome.
Yeah. I got you. So it was an unspoken. He read the room. He read the room.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's been established how sensitive he is,
Yeah.
Even after that, he's thinking of ways to be good to her, it's like, shouldn't we tell her, and all this other stuff. And so, it's established that he's the good guy. He has a lot on his shoulders, but he wants to take care of people.
So there's one, somehow it's mentioned that maybe Hippolyta is seeing George in Atticus, and that's part of the reason why she's upset or something.
Perhaps. That conversation with Letty, she certainly talks about some of the difficulties. She mentions the things that he does that are different than George.
I think there's a different reason, though. I think there's tension because it's not that Hippolyta sees George in Atticus. She sees George's infidelity in Atticus. That if we're going with the idea that George and Dora are the parents of Atticus, and let's assume for a second Hippolyta knows, which very possible she does, she could see Atticus as this constant reminder that George was unfaithful.
Right.
And so, it's like a little you're not a bad guy, but on the other hand, you're reminding me of this very painful moment in my life.
Right. We'll see. Going by the book again, there's a whole story that revolves around Hippolyta. So
right. I'm wondering if it has to do with that device that she finds in the Winthrop house. She comes in. There's a door that was previously locked that swings open. She's at the party. She finds this device. I'm guessing it was something maybe created by Epstein or he worked with, and I'm going to guess it can commune with other dimensions. Maybe she will use it, as you thought, to perhaps commune with George. She's like, oh, wait, maybe I can find a way to communicate with George on the other side or something. That's where I think that might be going, because we don't see what she does. She walks up to it, notices it. We also know that she is intrigued by science, right? I think she has a telescope. She likes looking at the stars. I think maybe there's the science of it could appeal to her too, but I have a feeling she took it home with her, perhaps. But
I did bump over the fact how readily people accept the idea of ghosts. In this world, magic and ghosts are real. So
again, they don't waste time.
What kind of great science awaits? I don't know.
All right, here's another prediction. We have the scene where Atticus goes, after he realizes he's worn out his welcome with Hippolyta, he goes to visit his dad, hoping to stay with his dad. That doesn't work out either. But during that conversation with Montrose, he brings up this old story where apparently Montrose and George as kids were saved by a mysterious stranger who wielded a baseball bat.
Oh, right.
And took out a bunch of racist guys and then told them I got you, kid, or something like that.
Right, and he mentions that he's been seeing it in his dreams, and we saw in one of his dreams, what is it? Not Babe Ruth. It was.
He saw Jackie Robinson.
He saw Jackie Robinson with the bat, right?
Which, by the way, Chadwick Boseman, a reference there. Rest in peace.
Yes, rest in peace.
Terrible tragedy.
Yes.
But I think, because now we've established that Atticus knows that story.
Yes.
And the mysterious stranger is...
You think it's him?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think it's him. I think there's going to be some situation where he ends up going back in time and rescuing George.
Did they have? Did Lovecraft do any time travel stories?
Yes, of sorts. I don't remember a specific thing where some guy was... But people have visited. I know that they visited other times.
Okay.
At least seen them. So whether they, I have a feeling there'll be it would be easy enough to say there's some moment where he could do that. Because I feel like you're not going to just leave that story unanswered.
No, not reference it this many times, and you know.
And so, who's the most likely person for it to be? It seems like Atticus is your likely candidate.
Sure.
As I was making notes for our talk, and I was writing the word Montrose, and I realized it's got all the letters for monster. Now, plus a letter or two, but the word monster is located in the word name Montrose.
Oh, sure.
Anyway, just throwing that out there.
Okay.
I think that might not be accidental.
You cracked it.
Yeah. Anyway. Also, we know that George's favorite book, Dracula. And we see Hippolyta like tearing the pages out, and then she gets a new book. What do we think is what is that all about?
I'm not sure.
Perhaps it's referring back again to that having Atticus there reminds her that he wasn't faithful. I don't know. Like
you try to get that in there somewhere.
She loves him, but she
he loved books, so I hate books. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I'm also not sure what if Dracula, the story of Dracula, has anything somehow represented in the life of George. If you out there in commenter land have an idea for how George might be connected to the Bram Stoker's Dracula, I'm not sure how that would be, but
right, yeah. I mean, I'd heard someone suggest that Letty was like Dracula, and I mean that she comes back to life.
Came back,
and that she's now kind of driven to make something of her life now, which you could say is like the insatiable need of a vampire. I mean, to say Dracula to me is only if you'd say vampire, because I feel like Dracula's story is, the story of Dracula isn't about Dracula. It's about the person who's corrupted by him.
Obviously, some very on point racial themes.
Sure.
Here we've got the neighborhood is not welcoming,
right,
to people in the neighborhood. They tie bricks to the horns of their cars.
Right.
They put a burning cross in the yard.
I mean, one thing that's interesting about that is I think I'd mentioned to you when we were off, but just the way in which all that resolved itself so neatly.
Yeah.
It's like you would think, like, okay, if you want to say they were only interested in harassing them until people disappeared, then it's like, why isn't someone going over there and seeing why people disappeared?
By the way, so yes,
only those 3 people who were a problem, and once they were gone, everything is fine.
Right, you're right. So we do get that little bit of a misdirect in the beginning of the episode where it says in 1955, 10 people moved into a house, and within 10 days, 3 people had disappeared. It kind of suggested that perhaps some of Letty's friends were those that disappeared. Instead, it's these racists that come in trying to do mischief, and they are killed off by the house. And we see that their bodies are below the basement.
With a bunch of other dead bodies.
But you're right. Like, how does that stop? Sure, it stopped the ghost.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
But it didn't stop the neighborhood from hating.
Yeah.
There's still hatred in there.
Yeah, that's what, as a Chicagoan, made me curious where this is occurring. And certainly one thing that actually happened is, if a black family successfully did move into a white neighborhood, then it wouldn't be white for very much longer. So maybe that's actually what is happening. Yes, exactly.
We also see, the very real police brutality of the,
Yes.
She's put in the car, and then they
slash
like the Freddie Gray incident that happened.
Right.
And so she's thrown around the car while handcuffed.
Yes.
It's on point with its racial message, and it obviously is very pertinent for modern times. It is not just something that is left to the 50s.
No.
ladies and gentlemen, we will be back talking about episode 4. We're also going to be wrapping up the Umbrella Academy season 2, which I've now watched all of, and wow, boy, the finale is it's action-packed.
It is.
So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you, good sir. And then we're going to talk about The Boys, which is coming out next week, I think.
The end of this week, I believe.
All right, so be it. We got some watching to do.
Yeah.
So we'll be back. Thanks so much, Paul.
Bye, Matt.
Bye.